in the placements, now, Facebook will always recommend that you use automatic placements, but that's not necessarily, you don't always want to do what Facebook recommends. And in this case, I would say it's not one of those times. So if you instead choose manual placements, you'll see that what they try to do is put your ad everywhere. And if you had the time and the budget to design very specifically your ad creative for all of those different placements, that might be worth doing. But even then, I wouldn't recommend it, because the best place to advertise is in the Facebook news feed there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take our audience network, which is actually places off Facebook and you don't really know what you're getting. I'm going to take off Messenger. Facebook and Instagram are where you'd probably most want to advertise, but it makes sense to do your Facebook and your Instagram ad sets separately, because the demographic of Facebook and Instagram is quite different. So if you advertise to Facebook and Instagram and all these placements all at once, the data that you get back is going to be a lot harder to read, and you won't necessarily be able to see, you'll be able to see which percentage have clicked through from Instagram and which from Facebook, but then you can't necessarily see the age groups that are specific to Instagram and specific to Facebook. So if you separate those ad sets, you'll get back much more useful data that you can then use to continue to optimize your advertising campaigns. So yes, do advertise on Instagram, but do it in a separate ad set, and you can set a separate budget for it. And then you can turn it off easily if you decide, actually, that's really expensive, or it's not working for me, turn it off. Or maybe that will work for you and you want to turn Facebook off. So it's really important to keep monitoring your ads, and don't keep running what isn't working. Go with what does work. So again, here, look, I'm going to just keep this really simple, and we'll just say Facebook news, which means that you have to manually go through this process of unticking all of these, which is a little bit annoying, but there you go. I'm not saying that you can't have a go at playing with some of these other placements, that's fine, but just probably best, especially when you're launching, just to start with the feed. Now, we're optimizing for link clicks, that's correct there, and I won't put in a cost control. So if we go next, now you can see up here, you've got this little structure here, which follows the structure of the campaign, the ad set, and the ad itself. We're advertising on still products, that's all fine. Now, you've got a few options here. Usually you would only use single image or video or carousel mostly. Images or videos, it makes sense to try an image, to try a video. Often videos do better in our experience, just because they tend to grab people's attention more, and also Facebook really likes video. I think Facebook is always trying to promote video, so it can be a really good strategy to launch with a video. Down here, you could add your media there. Now, this is where we set up the creative. So you can see it's got primary text. Now, the primary text is actually the text that sits on Facebook anyway. It's the text that sits above the image. But what I'll do is I'll add the video. Now, we are not going to use one of these for this particular ad, but I'm just going to reuse one that's already been done. Okay, I'll try this one. This is just for the purposes of the demonstration. So there's a little video there. That's all fine. We can say done. Okay, so there you can see it's the video of the product. So if we put in some text here, it's got some options there. I've sort of drafted something here. Be aware, it's always a good idea to draft your ad copy ahead of time, but then once you actually get into the platform, be prepared to change it, because once you see it in context, that's when you can kind of play around and just see what works well. And the reason I say that is that, as you can see here, this is giving us a little preview here. We can expand that. This is the mobile news feed. So as you can see, I've got some text in there, but you can only, it stops there. So what you want to do is make sure that the most important text that you want to put in your ad is in these first 3 lines and doesn't get cut off there, because that might be all people see. You don't have to write any more than that. It can be very short. And looks, again, this is one of these things where you can play around with different options. I've seen Facebook ads that have virtual essays that go on and on and on, and others that are just really, really short text at the top there. Try different things. So I can play this, and this was obviously a Christmas one, as you can tell. It's very attention grabbing there. Okay, so I'll close that. If you use this drop down, you can also see what it looks like on desktop. On desktop, you tend to get more text, but be aware that you get a lot more traffic, generally speaking, on mobile than you do on desktop. So that in that one, all the text fits in there. Okay, so I'll close that. So this is where you would put in your primary text, which as you can see, sits above the image. Here, the headline, it sort of goes against what you'd expect, but the headline actually sits below the image. So, I mean, just put something like that, bubble guns for everyone in this particular one. And you'll see it will sit there when it actually loads. And under here, you have a description. The description doesn't always appear, so don't put anything that's really, really important in your description. You might just, if it's a key selling point, put it in one of the other bits of text up there. You can add options so that you get different headlines, so that Facebook will decide for you which headline and which primary text to serve up to individual people. The problem with that, though, is that if you have in your primary text and your headline and your description, if you have multiple versions of each, Facebook will mix them up. And so if you've specifically put certain selling points in the primary text and then the different one in the headline and a different one in the description, you might end up Facebook giving you all 3 of the same sort of information. So plus you can't actually see which options are doing better than the others when you look at the data. So I usually don't bother to add those extra options in there. Down here, we've got our call to action, which in this case would be a shop now. And then you want to send your, this link here. This is an eBay. Oops, I've gone into the wrong one. I always do that. There we go. Okay, so you can put in your URL there. Okay, and then here, display link, you might just want to put a simplified, nicer URL in there. You can also kind of cheat and put in a / and say bubble guns if you want to. And you can see it's now saying that it's going to ebay.com.au/bubbleguns. So that's not a real URL. It'll actually just go there, but it just kind of gives you a little bit more text to play with there. So that's the ad, and then if you're happy with that, you can publish, and that's the basics of how you would set up a campaign. I won't publish this. I'll just close it. It will all save automatically. They're always trying to tell you to publish, and I refuse. Okay, because that needs a little bit more work. But that's the basics of setting up a campaign.